What if the government doesn't have to charge you with any crime to flag you and to monitor you? This is for all you out there screaming about gang stalking. You think you're being followed everywhere. A bunch of weird things are happening that you can't explain. You think you're being harassed. Well, you might not be so crazy. So let's lay out the facts. Let's lay out what we know. Now, there's a program called the Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Program. It's run by the Department of Homeland Security. This is what we know. This is facts. It's publicly available information. Now, this program is not about arresting individuals. It's about identifying risks before a crime happens. This program funds schools, it funds nonprofits, community organizations, and threat assessment teams and behavioral intervention models. Now, when you combine community organizations with threat assessment teams and behavioral intervention, that's where you get that ground level monitoring that many of you people who talk about gang stalking describe. Now, that means that your behavior can be evaluated. That means your speech can be interpreted and your grievance patterns can be assessed. And this is not in a courtroom, this is before a courtroom. This is a grant-funded prevention framework. It's nowhere close to a conspiracy theory. So the question isn't whether it's real. We know it's real. The question is, what are the guardrails? Who defines the risk? Who defines who is risky? What due process exists if you're wrongfully flagged? And let me tell you guys, if you're wrongfully flagged, your life is about to get pretty hard. We're living in the era of pre-criminal prevention. And most people don't even know that that system exists. I'm breaking this down deeper in a podcast in the coming months. I urge everybody here to go subscribe to the Truth Hurts Show. It's truly a great production because understanding the infrastructure, understanding the system changes the entire conversation. And I'm here to help you understand the system. Stay clean, stay up.
It is a directed energy weapon, backpack size. We just learned a lot about that from the invasion down in Venezuela, the discombobulator that the president called it, the discombobulator weapon. So I started investigating the source, the use, who in our government has the agitation weapon, and what its uses were. I learned that one of its uses was it can make people go nuts in a crowd in a color revolution.
Go nuts in what way?
A 3-star general, retired from SOCOM, that I interviewed.
Special Operations Command.
Correct. Told me, yes, that weapon exists. And I quote, "With it, we can stop your heart. We can make you shit your pants. But I wouldn't need that weapon to start January 6th. I would just need 4 or 5 of my best men." That's the exact quote. I interviewed members of that unit about the weapon. I have interviewed former Secretary of the Army about the weapon. All have verified its existence and its quote unquote prolific use within our special operators community. And I started looking for backpacks in the crowd. I know what the shape is. I know what the design is. I've interviewed 2 people that have participated in the design of that weapon. One of them's a doctor. The other one is a special operator who essentially assisted DARPA in the design of the how to make it field worthy out in the field. And so I started looking for it in the crowd. Me and my team, we're looking at backpacks everywhere. Well, one of the most interesting backpacks that day was worn by a small handful of Capitol Police officers that were up on the upper terrace that early on, before the crowd had gotten violent, started launching less lethals into the crowd. And they were wearing, so they've got their black uniforms on, but they've got military colored backpacks on. So we start zooming in on them in the cameras, and we got totally distracted about looking for a directed energy weapon, because what we found is that this team of less lethal officers were illegally firing into the crowd. They were firing their weapons against policy, against the law, against their own training. In fact, some of them were training officers in the use of less lethal, and they were using them in what's called a criminally negligent manner, shooting people in the head, in the crowd, in the face. They were shooting their own officers in the back of their helmets. Oof. On the front line. You could see the pepper pellets go explode off the back of their helmets. So we decided to do a story on the use of less lethal. Got distracted from the directed energy weapons.
Creep on in, on in, on in.
Sonic weapons.
Yeah,
that actually made people bleed through their ears.
Yeah, direct energy weapons. Yeah.
Explain to the audience, what exactly is that?
It's like what was going on in Havana, Cuba. No, it's imagine like something that may or may not look like not even a satellite. What do you call those things? Antenna. I'm going on big scale, the ones you can mount on Humvees. And they can direct energy at you and make you feel some, certain type of way. Could be the use of sounds or heating up like the atmosphere around you to make you feel like you're hot on the inside, boiling from the inside, or just sound, yeah. I always thought they were for crowd control.
The entire grid has been weaponized, and it's layer after layer of directed energy weapons. Boeing is one of the largest directed energy weapon manufacturers on the market, and it's so that they can outfit their planes with these weapons and take people out as they fly by. They're not just spraying you like bugs, poisoning the food, the air, the water. They're literally taking people out, making it look like natural causes. They're mimicking the stages of diseases so that nobody gets suspicious.
A journalist who spent years investigating Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch says that she is currently fleeing the United States after her home was targeted by direct energy weapons. Her name is Alyssa Valdez Rodriguez, and she publicly linked these alleged assaults to her independent investigative reporting on Jeffrey Epstein. On her Substack, she wrote that she was hit in her home office by 2 episodes of what she later concluded were direct energy weapon attacks. She described sudden neurological symptoms that she directly compared to Havana syndrome, the cluster of medical complaints reported by U.S. diplomats stationed abroad. She made other posts saying the operators used backpack-sized weapons placed near her roof or truck-mounted devices the size of large machine guns. She claimed these devices could generate a real-time 3D model of the inside of your house to zero in on specific targets. She said these operations were carried out by private military contractors hired by professionals unhappy with her reporting on the local military intelligence ties to Epstein's trafficking ring. She said she's currently making preparations to leave the U.S. permanently to ensure her safety. Her articles have explored claims regarding hidden underground victims, localized surveillance nets, and the overlap between Epstein's network, local nuclear laboratories, and the intelligence community.
So there's this theory, the so-called discombobulator, an alleged device that supposedly disrupts brain function using high-frequency waves, causing confusion and disorientation. Now, it might sound like a conspiracy, but here's the wild part: Havana syndrome. After all, starting in 2016, U.S. diplomats in Havana began reporting sudden, crippling symptoms: dizziness, hearing issues, cognitive problems. And the crazy thing is, it didn't stop there. These cases spread across over 90 countries. By now, more than 334 U.S. government personnel, diplomats, intelligence officers, their families have been struck by it. And despite all this, people still dismiss it. But the odds, think about it, this is not just random. These patterns point to something real, something that demands the full, honest truth. We're talking about highly trained government personnel, diplomats, intelligence agents, people who know the risks, who aren't prone to paranoia. And still, from Havana to Vienna, from Europe to Asia, the symptoms pile up. So when we look at the odds, 90 countries, hundreds of victims, this isn't just a fluke. There's a pattern here that demands accountability. And it's long past time it gets real scrutiny and real answers. So as a possibility, some people speculate that if a technology like this existed, and given how these symptoms spread, it could be deployed more broadly, potentially even on civilian populations. Now that's still speculative. There's no proof of mass public use, but it's exactly why people are pushing so hard for transparency. If something this disruptive can happen at a government level, we need full openness so the public is never left in the dark again.
Guys, what this guy has to say about cell phone towers and EMFs is absolutely alarming. This is something everyone needs to know. These things are literally frying us from the inside out. Make sure to listen to the video.
If you look at the Army War College documents, if you look at the DoD documents, and you look at some other deep level documents, they don't refer to those towers as cell phone towers. They refer to those as directed energy weapons, DEWs. They actually refer to your phone as a DEW, directed energy weapon, your router as a directed energy weapon. Well, I couldn't go much further because they have to control you through frequencies. That's how they control you. And mostly through extremely low frequencies, HARP frequencies, megahertz frequencies, 3, 4, 5G, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10G frequencies, gigahertz frequencies, microwave frequencies, radio frequencies. They can do it through music as well.
Wow.
But there's always the opposite of that too, like the good music with the solfeggio tones. And,
right.
and
so no
more
like microwaves, you're saying? Don't use those?
Oh, throw your microwave away. The microwave kills all the nutrients in the food anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so that's when you get into, they also want a lot of metals in your body. They need a lot of metals in your bodies as transducers and as receivers. And they want you to be exposed to all these EMFs and all these frequency devices. So the solution is to get rid of all the chemicals and all the metals in your body. You could do that through toxin binders, ozonated activated charcoal, like a microsomal EDTA, some clay, stuff like that. Do all of this transhumanism stuff. We're already coming up with solutions, which are just detox your body, make those decisions to start cleaning your liver. Do liver cleansing, do heavy metal cleansing, do parasite cleansing, clean and heal your gut, put some really good probiotics in your gut, and try to avoid or protect yourself from any of the EMFs as much as possible.
In addition to what he suggested, I highly recommend you consume enough glutathione, which has enormously powerful detox properties. Get sauna exposure at least 15 to 20 minutes, 3 to 4 days per week. Make sure to ground preferably near a body of water, a lake, or an ocean. If you're close to a beach, a nice 20-minute beach walk will absolutely suffice. What you're going to try to avoid or limit as much as possible is blue light exposure, and that's being emitted through all the lighting around us every day. TVs, laptops, computers, and cell phones. Drop your comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on this. Make sure to follow and don't hesitate to forward this video to someone who needs to hear this.
There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things, especially on the low duration, the low intensity, long duration hits.
Are either of you aware of any individuals who have AHI symptoms have passed away from their ailments?
I do. I do.
Have any of you three panelists ever seen one of these weapons?
I have seen a 1991 version of the weapon, and it looks like a satellite dish with a unit this size attached to it. This, of course, over the years, miniaturization has been possible. Obviously, there's a limitation to how miniaturized it can be because of the antenna size, which is always related to the wave. But still, it is something that can be well contained in the trunk of a car or even a large backpack.
Turns out, radiation weapons were not a conspiracy theory at all. So far, the US military has poured billions into directed energy weapons, using focused electromagnetic energy to disable electronics and incapacitate targets. One example is the active denial system, a heat ray weapon that uses millimeter wave EMF to burn the surface of skin and force people to disperse. It's non-lethal, but physical, painful, and real. Then there's Thor, a high-power microwave system made to take out swarms of drones by frying their electronics. Another one is called the Laser Weapon System. It was deployed in the US Navy ships in 2014 to shoot down drones using lasers, pure electromagnetic energy. And here's what should make your head hurt. These systems use the same basic forms of energy that power your router and phone. It's just that their intensity is cranked up a bit. So, do you still think that bathing in the same radiation 24/7 is harmless?
So what kind of capabilities do these weapons have in addition to what she's exposed? And, you know, do they have a potential to be deadly?
Yes, ma'am. So in my conversations with Catherine Herridge, and I really thank her very much for the depth and stringency of her reporting, she's absolutely right. There are essentially two generations of these weapons. The first seem to be sonic weapons working in the ultrasonic range, and they tend to produce an overexcitation in hollow cavities and fluid-filled cavities, like the inner ear, but that can also communicate through the bloodstream to the brain to create something like a mini stroke-like effect. Those original injuries in Havana, as you may recall, were originally referred to as the immaculate concussion. But then subsequent generations of these types of weapons, these types of devices, also produce very rapidly pulsed microwaves that don't have a thermal signature and that utilize a laser to pulse the microwaves very, very quickly so that the waveform is preserved, but without the necessary thermal signature, no heat, and without the need for large power sources. It'll make these very, very scalable. Now these operate differently. They actually disrupt the neurological integrity of the nodes and networks of the brain, both in the short term, but then certainly in the longer term, where you're then seeing subacute and more chronic effects on the autonomic system, heart rate, immune system, endocrine function, and these can be very debilitating in the long term.
Tonight, I can share new and exclusive reporting about a cluster of suspected directed energy attacks that are blamed for crippling brain and neurological injuries affecting spies, diplomats, military personnel, and civilians. It's commonly known as Havana syndrome. Through my reporting, I've identified at least 3 incidents beginning in 2020 involving U.S. government personnel in Northern Virginia. In some cases, the individuals were investigating directed energy weapon technology, and at least 1 incident occurred at a U.S. government facility. The CIA and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, that's the nation's top intelligence official, did not respond to my questions about how the risk to U.S. personnel is being addressed. Joining us now is Dr. James Giordano, Professor Emeritus of Neurology at Georgetown University Medical Center. He has also served as a forensic neuroscientist on Havana syndrome cases. Dr. Giordano, let's begin with a simple explanation for people so they can understand how these directed energy attacks impact the individuals and their brains.
Sure, absolutely. Well, if we're looking at directed energy, the issue is that essentially there's 2 types that have been used. One was a form of sonic energy, and the other appears to be a laser-induced microwave, a very rapidly pulsed microwave. In the former situation with the ultrasound, what's essentially happening is the compression and expansion of the ultrasonic wave causes almost a bubbling effect within fluid media within the brain, within the head.
So it's like a concussive effect within the brain.
It is. It's almost as if what's happening is that they're getting some form of decompression sickness. The symptoms are very similar. So what's happening is these are causing bubbling and rippling, which is then disrupting not only the balance organs and hearing organs, but may also then transmit into the brain to cause something like a mini stroke.
So let me take that a step further. With the initial assault, is that where the injury and the damage ends, or is it progressive?
It is progressive. As we mentioned, there are 2 types, the second type being microwaves, and the microwaves really will disrupt the network effects of the brain. Think, if you will, of putting something like a cell phone very briefly into a microwave for a second. It may seem that it's working the same, but it will never actually be the same, and in fact, its function may decrement with time. This is the same thing we're seeing with these patients. There'll be an initial set of effects that tend to worsen as various aspects of the brain and nervous system become far more disrupted, deteriorated over time.
I want to talk to you about some new reporting. I've been able to identify at least 3 incidents in the Northern Virginia area in the last 5 years. I think there are in fact more, where the individuals report an initial attack with a directed energy weapon, and then there's a pause, and then there's sort of a staccato of attacks, sort of a rapid pace of attacks that follow. What does that tell you about the nature of these weapons and the damage that's being done?
Well, this seems to be more of the microwave type or something along the electromagnetic frequency, where the first attack is called a priming attack. It may get ranging, it may get certain characteristics to be able to affect the individual, and then what you get is secondary attacks, or what are sometimes called sequence or finishing attacks. And what that may then incur is an amplification of the initial effect. So what you're sort of doing is you're stirring the pot, and then you're really letting it boil.